If you could get 100% of 10 or 0% of 1,000, which one is better? Obviously,
Totally.
100% of 10.
100% of 10.
So when you're starting out, you have to do that. If you're not even looking at keyword research, but you're just thinking, how can I common sense DIY this? You have to put yourself in the mindset of the searcher. If you were searching for the type of content, what would you type in the search? That's your starting point. Whatever you would type in the search, that's the phrase that needs to go into your title. It needs to go into your URL. It needs to be throughout the content.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. We're continuing our series on coaches that don't suck. Today, I have a very special guest who doesn't identify as coach. However, her skills are so powerful for coaches that want to get in front of their ideal client and have their social media content and websites working beautifully to attract their ideal client. I just couldn't resist inviting Jordan Becerra to today's show. So, hello, Jordan.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to our little show here. Um, Jordan, I'd really love to understand better because I'll confess, when I was starting my business, I really got intimidated by the idea of SEO. And I even went so far as to say, you don't need that. The reason why I said that is because I was hustling like crazy and doing a lot of in-person networking. So you don't need search engine optimization if you're only doing networking. But about a year and a half in, I got the worst allergy attack and I had to cancel all my networking, travel, all the things I was doing to build new relationships with people that I could coach. And I violently shoved into the world of digital marketing in a more serious way. And then I still avoided SEO. So I'm really excited to have you on the show because I'm ready to learn a thing or two. But I also know that coaches in general need what you have. I've been stalking your Instagram. Can you unpack for me what drew you to this world? Why SEO? Why influencer SEO?
SEO is the most powerful marketing tool. It creates sustainable incoming leads that you don't have to constantly work for. You don't have to be in the social media hamster wheel. You can create content and have that content go out and work for you for 2 to 5 years. That's the main difference between SEO and social media. The lifespan of the content. You're not limited to the scroll of social media. Instead, all you have to do is create content that ends up ranking on a search engine. It pops up for people's searches, and you start getting that traffic organically.
I love that. For a quick reference for the reader, the listener, SEO does stand for search engine optimization. So just like keep that in mind as we continue, but I forgot to define that. Search engine optimization is the most powerful tool in digital marketing, I'm told. So Jordan, how'd you get into it? What drew you to it?
So my background, actually, I started in website project management. I learned how websites function, the basics of SEO. Then I started working for my sister-in-law. She has a blog. Her blog is The Skinny Confidential. It's now a podcast, a product line, a huge business. I fell in love with just the influencer space. So in the influencer space, their goal is essentially to get as many people to their website as possible because what they're selling isn't a product or service, they're selling their attention. So, what is the fastest way to grow that attention? It's to reach more people. And what is the fastest way to reach more people? Some people would argue it's social media. I would say, hands down, it's through search engines like Google, Yahoo, or Bing. Most studies show that Google can drive about 1,000% more traffic than social media. I definitely found that to be the case. In the influencer space specifically, and this was 10 years ago, when the influencer movement was really just getting started. She was probably one of the first to be a traditional blogger. And so I was working on her back end, learning about affiliate programs, learning about how bloggers make money, all that kind of stuff, and really honing in on my SEO skills. From there, I loved working for her. She taught me so much. She's still a mentor to this day. But I decided I wanted to go out and spread my wings as an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to focus on SEO because I saw it as the most valuable marketing tool and the most underutilized marketing tool, especially in that content creator space. So I launched Influencer SEO and I started super bootstrap. I was literally emailing people just saying, "Hey, can I do your SEO? Can I help you with this?" Just emailing people from my, Gmail account. Started getting a few clients and, now we're 7, almost 8 years in, and we've worked with over 300, approaching 400 content creators, coaches,
Wow.
podcasters. I like to use the term digital entrepreneur because we're working with anybody hoping to monetize an online presence. So that definitely includes coaches. That definitely includes podcasters. Anybody that has a product that they're selling online, we help them grow their traffic and influence using SEO.
Ah, this is so cool. And, I'll confess, Jordan, just looking at your Instagram, I was like, I need to be thinking about search engine optimization very differently. I need to be thinking longer term with this stuff. What you've been in the space for some time. What do you think it is that causes coaches like me to assume that social media is the way to go versus taking a strategy like SEO into account? Like, what do you think the what's the appeal of social media and why do they turn their back on something so powerful?
I think the appeal of social media is quite honestly the instant gratification of it. With social media, you
Mm,
have likes, comments, shares, saves that you can instantly see. It's instant gratification. Whereas
mm.
SEO, you have to create the content, put it on your blog, and then wait a little bit for that content's performance to mature. It could be 3 months before you start realizing the gains of your content from your blog. Sometimes it can take a year for a blog post to reach its full performance on search engines.
A very different way of looking at it. With Instagram right now, I'm posting probably 5 stories a day, 3 times doing a post. And don't get me started on Facebook. I'm posting like 8 times a day to get growth there.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thing. I tell people, while you feel like you're doing a lot on social media because you're getting those likes, you're getting the comments, but really you're starting over every single day. So every single day you're creating the content, you're in the hamster wheel, right? Whereas with blog content and ranking on search engines, you're stacking up these pieces of content that work for you consistently. You spend 4 hours on an Instagram reel, you publish it, it works for you for 24 to 48 hours. You spend 4 hours on a blog post, you publish it, and that works for you for 2 to 5 years. So as you stack up those blog posts, you start to build up this mountain of incoming traffic. That's why for us as a business, we haven't had to do very much social media because we do our own SEO. We're constantly just having leads coming in for that. We create content around blogging, coaching, podcasting so that we're reaching those target audiences when they're Googling and they're coming to us consistently. The other thing about social media is that you're promoting constantly to the same people over and over. So you're
Especially organic.
which if you it's still very valuable. Don't get me wrong. I find social media to be very, very valuable. I like to say you got to use the tools in your toolbox wisely. So if you're trying to connect with your current audience or convert your current audience into a sale, that's where social media is important. And that's where you spend your time massaging the relationship, making your followers feel like they're really engaged, they trust you, they understand what you offer so that they're more likely to purchase. Whereas if you're trying to grow your audience and reach more people, or if you're at the point in your business where you're looking to scale, SEO is going to provide a lot more value because you're going to be reaching new people every single month. It's not the same people Googling the same thing over and over again, right? It's new people. So let's say you're ranking for the top 10 best coaches and you're in that blog post. It's new people every single month that you're reaching.
I love this. That's such a great insight about the difference between posting organically every day versus working a bit on that blog every day. I think a lot of coaches are generally very reticent or scared of doing the marketing in general. And what I really love about this strategy and why I'm glad that you're talking to us about it today is it's educational marketing. You know, like you're teaching people, helping people, having impact on people, and you're leading them to that logical next step to, for example, join your email list or take that action to, you know, more proactively enroll in something with you. I really love that. The other thing coming up for me is the intentionality of the lead. Not only are you meeting new people, but someone who's going to Google, they're going to Google because they are looking actively for the thing. A lot of the social media content, people are there because they're bored. You know, they're bored, they're
Exactly.
sad, you know, their intent is in a completely different place. So your social content has to be so good to catch their attention, sustain their attention, convert their attention from a
Mhm.
place of, like, I call it zombie brain versus
Exactly.
intentional searcher.
And you can look at this whenever I am trying to convince people of this exact point. I say, okay, think of any time you're on social media. How many podcast clips have you seen that you never went and actually listened to the full podcast?
They listen to this one. This is
Yes,
the exception though, right?
you see these clips, you better be clicking and going and listening to the full episode because we're dropping some value here. Think of how many times you're on social media and you see a podcast clip or a clip from anything and you love it and you think the clip is amazing, but you don't take an action any further. Social media is meant to keep you on the platform. It is meant to keep you staying there engaged. It's not meant to push you somewhere else. If you're boredom scrolling, you're sitting in a doctor's office waiting room, cruising through social media, seeing all this random stuff, you have no real intention. Whereas if you're taking the time to go to Google, search for something, you're much more likely to be in a position where you're able to convert, you want to convert, you might have your credit card, you're ready to go. Whereas social media, you could be on a subway, you could be anywhere.
It's so true. I love this. I'm redrawing my entire marketing strategy here on this very call, and I'm not even close to kidding y'all. I think I'm not planning on dialing back the social media because I have figured it out, but this is the next frontier. This very episode, for example, we're writing a blog post around and surrounding this episode. So here's a question for you. If somebody's getting started with SEO or they want to do it well from the beginning, what would you say are your top 3 tips?
If you want to do it well from the beginning, first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're not just choosing keywords based on volume. That is probably one of the biggest mistakes. When you're first starting out, you want to go for what is least competitive. So it's probably going to be keywords that don't have as much volume. But I'll be honest, if you could get 100% of 10 or 0% of 1,000, which one is better? Obviously,
Totally.
100% of 10.
100% of 10.
So when you're starting out, you have to do that. My second tip would be if you're not even looking at keyword research, but you're just thinking, how can I common sense DIY this? You have to put yourself in the mindset of the searcher. If you were searching for the type of content, what would you type in the search? That's your starting point. Whatever you would type in the search, that's the phrase that needs to go into your title. It needs to go into your URL. It needs to be throughout the content. And that's where your, like, I guess, value tree would start from. My third tip is you just don't want to create low value content. At the end of the day, search engines, all they're trying to do is provide the user with the best answer with the value they're looking for. So you have to think, okay, if I were searching for this, what kind of questions would I need answered? What kind of value am I looking to receive from this? You need to put all of that in the content. That's really the most important thing. It comes down to the basics of adding value so that people searching for something are actually learning what they wanted to learn. There's no way to game the system. So don't try to keyword stuff or think you can just quickly put in some questions and one word answers. No, you really have to provide value. On our blog, if anyone's interested, we have simple guides, and I'd be happy to share this with.
Let's do it.
We have a ton of posts that are like the top 10 tips for beginners that are trying to DIY it. If you are trying to DIY your SEO, you do risk wasting time if you are not doing it right. The biggest mistake I see is that people start creating content for things that people aren't really searching for. So you might think it's an important topic, but if they're not actually searching for it because it's not searchable or something that people might find on social media versus Google, you're just kind of wasting your time. You really want all the time you put into content creation because it's so time consuming. You want to make sure that it's strategic and it's going to be worthwhile.
You know, I really love this because one of the first steps that I take my clients through as I'm helping them to pivot into profit with their business is like let's validate that people even want the thing. And what you're talking about, we create content that we find interesting, or we think that our avatar should find interesting, or we create just content for content's sake. I've definitely done my share of that myself, but over the years really learned as I'm helping people be successful, you really don't have to recreate this wheel or imagine that people are searching for stuff. There's literal tools that will tell you this is what people are looking for.
You can go to Google Trends. There's tons of keyword tools. There's like SEMrush is amazing, Ahrefs. There's tons of tools out there. We actually like to use multiple tools because they have different data. Getting the full picture by looking at all the tools is super helpful. Knowing that you're creating content that your target audience is looking for is really the first step.
Now, before we went live with the podcast, you were sharing with me the way that you and your company work with people. I really loved hearing about that. How do you do that that is different from other providers of SEO services?
So typical SEO services are not geared towards the content creator space. They're geared towards products, local businesses. That's kind of where traditional SEO lies. And that's why I started this business because I wanted to focus on this niche of the digital entrepreneur that has a personal brand, either a coach, podcaster, blogger, influencer. We cater specifically to that type of digital entrepreneur. The difference is we have a service where you can actually just have us give you all the strategy. So we're telling you, okay, here's what you write about. Here are all the topics. We give topic suggestions. We give blog post outlines. We optimize our clients' content and then they can write it. We do have full like done for you services where we actually write the content, do the images, all that kind of stuff. But really, for bloggers or podcasters or coaches, people that love the actual writing process, they don't need all of that. They don't need the farmed out Philippines writer that's just basically from a service where that's what most SEO companies do. They just farm out the content creation process. And it's not an actual local human being writing the content. That's why when you Google stuff, a lot of the content you're reading is kind of iffy, not super in depth, or it doesn't feel like the person really knows what they're talking about. That's because it's usually not the business creating the content. It's usually, someone else. And like I said, it's usually farmed out to like Fiverr. We are going to be working with the content creator that knows their brand, knows their topic. And if they want us to write for them, they can. We also, all of our writers that we use are dedicated writers. They're on our team full time. They're not farmed out. So that's really the main difference, I would say.
That's really, really cool. And I think you've done a really good job of understanding this digital creator space, right? Because I think that a lot of us get into it because this is our art, this is our creation, right? And so I really love how you kind of have that entryway to like getting the support to do your art even better, but it's not taking away your creative freedom or anything like that. I really, really like that strategy. That's cool.
Yeah, oh, sorry. When we give our clients a blog post outline, we always say this is your starting point. So you now have a strategic title, you now have a strategic URL. You now know we give even like what to put in the intro. So you want to prove that you have personal experience in your intro. We explain for them like how to do that. We give them each subheading. We give them all the questions that they have to answer. So like a really easy example would be, let's say you're doing a product review. We tell them the questions people are Googling about this product that you need to put in your post and answer. So it's really just like a detailed outline of everything A to Z that they need to put in the post. And then all they need to focus on is being a creative and adding what's in their brain because they're the expert into the blog post.
I love this. It's like you kind of give that skeleton and then it's for us to just flesh out, which is a really cool strategy. I've worked with a lot of marketers who are super hands off and then they're just like, okay, well, here's how to do it. And then goodbye. I've actually had the experience in my business where it's like the voice kind of got lost in the whole thing. And as a coach, it's so important that people get a sense of exactly who you are, because coaching ultimately is a relationship, a very special relationship. So if you're showing up robotically or you're showing up as a cookie cutter of everybody else, then that's going to be the exact opposite of what you want. But that being said, I like to say there's such a thing as being too weird of a unicorn, right? If you no longer look like a horse, if you no longer have the traits of what somebody would expect to see when they hear unicorn, then we've pushed that envelope a little bit too far. And now people can't understand exactly what it is we do. So I kind of think of SEO as this clarifying connector piece that can make your content absolutely sing and be irresistible for your amazing dream clients.
Totally. Totally. SEO is one of those things where it takes time. It definitely requires consistency, but once you've invested in it and done the work, it's an asset. It's not like paid ads or social media where you have to continue doing it to get the value with paid ads. You have to continue to pay to receive the benefit of the traffic or the attention you're trying to get. With SEO, the time and money you put into it stays with you for 2 to 5 years. So, like I said, you're investing in your product. And especially if you make money off of, like a lot of content creators make money off of ads on their website or affiliate links, things like that. The more traffic you have, the more money you're going to make. So, it's not only the leads, it's also how you can monetize your website and your platform in other ways. That being
Yeah, I
said,
love that.
leads from SEO typically convert at about 14%, whereas leads from other platforms are anywhere between like 9 and 0.5%. So it also is really the leading, most highest converting form of marketing as far as lead gen goes.
That's a really cool stat. What was also coming up for me is somebody who's learned how to do paid ads, learned how to do organic, learned how to do email marketing, learned how to do all these different things. And I'm so excited about my SEO now. I'm definitely going to be focused on this. Is you're getting a data-driven analysis of what people actually want, right? A broader market. You're getting a really strong idea of how what you do connects with what they want, and you can use that information, those keywords, that phraseology in all the other kinds of marketing. I think that that's one of the things that has me so excited is I'm like, oh my God, my paid ads will improve if I focus on SEO, right?
Well, yes. And to your point, understanding what the market is, I think this is valuable for coaches because coaches are often looking for their next offering. What is the next course they're going to teach? What is the next type of coaching program that they're going to offer? And if you are focusing on SEO, you can see what are people searching for and how big is this market? How big is the leadership coaching market? You can do keyword research and see. So a lot of the coaches we work with, before they start their new product offering, they'll come to us with their ideas and say, okay, how big is this market? Is this something that people are looking for? What are the phrases that people are looking for when they name their new program? They want to choose something that might be easily rankable. For example, our business name is Influencer SEO. It's pretty straightforward on what it is. We capture a lot of people that aren't necessarily looking for us. They're looking for SEO for influencers. So you can name your programs, you can name your new offerings, things that people are searching for, and really just have that kind of take off as well.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Jordan, I have one more question because I know you do work with a lot of coaches. What have you noticed, or maybe the top three things that a coach who does not suck does differently? So, what is it that makes them stand out, that they're strong, that they are getting the kinds of results that they want and are really successful?
I don't know that I have three, but I know that I definitely have two. My first one would be that I feel that the best coaches are the ones that make it simple. A lot of the things that work are not these grandiose, huge strategies. It's the things that you do every day on a consistent basis. Like in Dan Martell's coaching program, it is the
Five
five
daily
things
non-negotiables.
you have to do every day. And you know what's so funny? When I joined his coaching program, And I saw that that's really how I started my business. It really, and it's kind of like you forget as you go along how you started. I started by just emailing people and reaching out, just talking about the business, putting it out there, reading, educating myself, working out. Those are the things that really are important in order for you to become successful. So those are simple things though, but it's things that you do every single day that add value. I would say a coach that keeps it simple because they know that simple works and consistency works. The second thing I would say is a coach that adds a lot of value is a coach that shows you how to or helps you track your results from what they offer. Results tracking is key because you need to know that everything you're investing actually works. We're kind of coaches, but we're also service providers. We track results weekly. We report weekly results. How much are you growing? How many rankings are you gaining? Obviously, it depends on the industry that you're in and the type of person that you're helping. But if you can help your people that you're working with learn how to track their results, learn how to see their results, you're obviously a great coach because you're helping them achieve those results. You're going to have people coming back again and again because they're going to be able to see the value that you add.
I love that. Our coaching program changed radically when we added a tracker for their daily activity. It's very similar to the program that we met in with those regular non-negotiables. I call them the BAM, the bare ass minimum of what you need to be doing every day to create an outcome and a result. When we added that tracker, you could literally count and see, am I doing the thing on a regular basis? Then it really kind of demystifies. It's almost like having a crystal ball. When you're willing to look at data, when you're willing to track data, when you're willing to look at all of the trends, it is such a insanely competitive advantage as opposed to hope as a strategy, which Peter Drucker said, hope is not a strategy.
I love data. My favorite thing to do is whenever I work, either working with somebody or considering working with somebody, is to walk them through their Google Analytics because that's where all their data is. So they can see clearly what is working, what is driving traffic to my website, what is driving traffic to my offers. And you can see clearly how much time you're putting in to things that are just not working. One of the biggest things I see that people do that is not working is typically email marketing. And that's like a huge thing. Everyone's like, email marketing, email marketing. But when we go into the Google Analytics, it's driving very minimal traffic to the website, very minimal traffic to your offers. I would just say, anybody out there, look at your Google Analytics and see where your traffic is coming from, see where you're spending your time, and focus your time on the things that are actually working versus the things that aren't.
Jordan, if people wanted to follow you, what's the best way to do that?
You can follow us at Influencer SEO. That's our Instagram handle, and where we're posting tips and SEO news. If you want to follow me personally, it's Jordan T. Becerra. That's just going to be like family and workouts. And then on our website too, influencerseo.com.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom. I know I learned a lot on this episode, and I really appreciate you being here.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. If anybody is interested in reaching out, I would love to offer any listeners of this podcast a free evaluation. And also, we could do maybe a coupon code if that sounds good to you.
That sounds awesome.
10% off. I think that sounds good. But also, no pressure. I just love talking about SEO. So if you even just want a free evaluation, it's one of my favorite things to do, walk people through their analytics and show them, like, this is what's working, this is what isn't working.
I love it. And thank you so much for being so accessible. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes. And hey, listener, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Amanda Kaufman Show. You know what really helps? I know we've been talking about SEO. It also really helps when you leave a 5-star review and you subscribe to the channel because it signals to other people that, hey, this stuff is pretty good. If you learned something today, make sure to leave us a review and share this with 1, 2, maybe even 3 of your coachy friends who are working like crazy. They're working 20 hours a week and you want to help them get all the results from their hard work. All right, y'all, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.